politicians in the Baltic nations have been critical of recent European talks about the war in Ukraine. The Lithuanian president says Europe now needs to show, quote, whether it's just a debate club or whether we can make decisions. The Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania, weren't invited to the talks in London last weekend on Ukraine's security. They may be EU members with the greatest cause for concern about Russia's intentions, as each of them has a border with Russia and they were all once part of the Soviet Union. Lithuania has already pledged to boost defence spending to 5% of its GDP. It's also spent $21 million buying arms for Kyiv from Ukrainian manufacturers. Defence Minister Dovile Sakhalin told Politico, we would be naive to think that Europe does not need the United States. We do. But at the same time, we also need Europe to grow stronger. And the minister joins me now live from Washington. And let me just ask you, you are in DC, you are talking to lawmakers there. How are you being received? What is the mood? Has it changed significantly, do you believe?
Well, I just had a meeting with the chairman of the Appropriations Committee, Mr. Cole, and I think it was a very good meeting, and it shows again and again that partners, that allies who deliver on their promises, like Lithuania, who invest in their own defense, who support Ukraine, and who are less about talk and more about action, are really perceived as team, as friends and as allies. So on that, I feel really confident. At the same time, of course, there is this difficult conversation now ongoing, but which we as Lithuania fully support, because we for years have been encouraging or even pressuring our colleagues to realize that we need defense industry boost, that we need defense investments that are well above 2%. And yes, as you mentioned, we are going to have from 5 to 6% GDP, at least for the period of 5 years. We have set that specific sum for 2026, 2030, but also we support Ukraine by providing 0.28% GDP last year, and this year it's not going to be less. So at least 0.25 GDP to Ukraine would be something that would speak louder than a lot of declarations. So that is, I think, received well here in DC, as well as our understanding that sometimes dramatic words do not help, because we have to accept reality. United States is necessary for Europe, but we believe that Europe is also necessary for United States. But it needs to be not a relationship where one is dependent upon the other, but where both are partners, strongly standing on both feet and putting money on the table, producing weapons and helping each other in action.
You're in DC looking for security guarantees for Ukraine from the Americans and suggesting that Europe can't go it alone or shouldn't go it alone, that you need US support. In Brussels today, European leaders seem to be more stern in their words. And you've said, you know, it's time perhaps to stop this sort of bombast, but we are hearing very stern and a sense of urgency in Europe. Take a listen to the European Parliament President.
It is about damn time. This is something that we have been asking for a long time, that the European Union, that Europe is capable of standing up on its own 2 feet. For Europe to say that we are ready to put, finally, our money where our mouth is.
Exactly.
What do you make of those words?
So I couldn't agree more with Ms. Metsola, because that's exactly what needs to be done. And now when the European Union finally answered our urge as well as harsh words by United States, and is now ensuring that we will have those hundreds of billions of euros necessary for our defense capacity strengthening, which is a necessity if we want to help Ukraine. That means, as she said, that we finally put the money on the table, and therefore 800 billions that would be available for defense, including 150 billion for quick loans, for joint loans by the states, especially those that are on the border, strengthening of the northern eastern flank. That is the action that we need. What I meant before, that, less chat, more action, is less criticism to the style of the way that United States talks, but more action from our own side.
Let's just be clear about this, because you're talking as if that is a reality already. It's a lot of money, $750 billion being freed up effectively or more for this rearmament initiative. That's all well and good, but it needs support from the entire bloc. And you know, and I know, that there are a number of countries who are unwilling at this point to really support Ukraine in further aid and, seeing this war, frankly, continue. So how's Europe going to come together, if at all?
Well, let's look at the chronology. Last year, when Lithuania was saying very loudly that we need money for defense investments right now, we were absolute minority. In the beginning of this year, already a bloc of countries along the northern eastern border was speaking in one voice. But after the defense ministers meeting in Brussels, where Secretary Hegseth, had a cold shower for all of us, in 24 hours, there was more change than in months. And now, after certain harsh statements by President Donald Trump, European Commission is now talking about specific numbers, specific mechanisms, and there are talks also how we could resolve the joint decision-making obstacles that we are now having, that certain borrowing systems could be not as a European Union itself, but is as a coalition of certain countries. Technical and legal issues can be resolved very easily if there is a political will. And now, finally, in the matter of a few weeks, this political will has moved forward much further than in years before. And since we all know how the situation is going, I'm quite sure we will have to do it, even though it's going to be difficult. But now Germany of all of them, has said very clearly that Maastricht criteria should not be applied to defense spending, whilst Germany was one of the main opposers. Now, even in France, we have talks about use of the 200 billion frozen assets for Russia, even though there is internal discussions, but in France, it is already happening. So therefore, I think that we will now, as Europe, we will have to prove, are we doing business really, or are we just continuing talking? And I think we are now finally on the business side.